All right, we are on here for another wonderful masterclass from one of my favorite. Honestly, I find her. I feel like she's one of the physio yogis in my life as well. Even though she's not doing the whole, the big yoga bit or whatever. She's a women's health physical therapist, global brand, really at this point. Helping women all over. Not only in some of her clinical work and her pearls, but in her work with the leaders, with the medicine women. And so it's telling me my internet's a little unstable. So if you see my picture go off, Michelle, just realize we're still going. I'm just trying to save my internet connection. I knew when I was trying to have this collective to support the medicine women of the world shine and see their light, Michelle needed to be there. So I'm so grateful Michelle Lyons, all the way over from Ireland, taking some of her time, her precious time, to be here as one of your masterclass mentors. And Michelle, why don't you introduce yourself with, kind of where you're going with this conversation in terms of, now that you've got your systems, now that you learn, okay, now you know your tribe and you've been doing, your thing, and how have you made it, how are you making it smart, and what are you doing right now to grow and be who you can be?
Okay, so thank you, first of all, for having me here. It truly is a privilege and an honor to talk to you. It's a pleasure to talk to you, but it's an honor to be part of this community, first of all.
Yeah.
Like I said before we started recording here, one of the reasons that I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic is that I think as physios, as women, sometimes we are so busy with our head down and it's work, 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 and push, 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 that all of a sudden you look up and 10 years have passed. Or you look around one day and you realize that I don't want to do this anymore. And it's as if, you're facing the wall and there's nowhere else to go, because you have mortgage, you have student loans, you have, kid expenses, you have a life and you have to finance that life. And I think for a lot of physios, there's a lot of frustration out there. And I think that there is a better way. And I think movements, because I really feel like what you're creating here is a movement rather than just a one-off masterclass.
Right.
I think it's really important that we look at how we change our way of doing business. And it's okay to talk about doing business and making money. These are not dirty words.
Even if you're a health and service provider, because
even if you're a female service provider, particularly, that seems to be a struggle.
Yeah.
We have a lot of value. I think we are a really under-tapped resource in the world of health and well-being. And I think we need to not be afraid to shine our light a little bit. So I think, it's as much figuring out, sometimes it's easier to figure out what you don't want, first of all, rather than what you do want. So I think this is a lovely time of year. It's the start of the year. The madness of the holidays has passed. It's a great time of year because all your diary is blank. I'm a real stationery addict, so I love, lots of good notebooks and pens. There's something very transformative about the power of writing down your goals.
Yes.
So a whiteboard, a blank paper, because if you write it down, it's real. And I think this is a great time of year, and it's a great time in the world in general to figure out what it is that you don't want, first of all. Okay, so you can cross off the list. To figure out what you do want, personally, professionally, financially, and then to figure out how you're going to get from this point to this point. And I think as a physio, you're in a really great place, particularly if you're working in women's health. It's a golden age of women's health, I think, because the momentum is rising. We saw on the Golden Globes a couple of weeks ago, Oprah's speech. The time's up for squishing women's needs down. And I think the other really important part of Oprah's speech was speak your truth. Okay, so for us as female entrepreneurs in healthcare, it's about speaking your truth. It's about figuring out how you can move to a life that fits your needs. And it doesn't have to be forever, because your needs will change. but it's about designing a life professionally and personally, because the two are obviously intertwined, that fits your needs. And I've been happy to been working on this for the past, I would say probably really the past 10 years. And I think there are so many great resources out there to support female health and well-being entrepreneurs at this point, that if not now, then when? You know, it's time. It's time to step up.
It is time. Thank you for those wisdom nuggets, because you said a couple of real important things there. It's about creating a movement. I mean, these are the things. These are the subtle things. I mean, yes, you can go with the hustle and grind and force and make people feel like, you know, they're going to be a loser if they don't do this, and like you're missing out. It's going to be the worst thing in your whole entire life. But you know what? I don't know about you, Michelle, but like that, it always made me feel like crap, because we didn't have tangents. I mean, you know what? It ends up, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant, or oh my gosh, so-and-so has to move, and I actually want to move, and we have to go. You moved, right? You were in the U.S. and you're here in Ireland, and you have this wonderful career or whatever, and you can't be like, oh my God, because you've so relied on, you know, you may need to take another job. You know, if yoga therapy or physical therapy or fitness training or whatever for women is such a closed box for you, you may look at that as such a fear, and maybe you don't end up working. Maybe you change your career, and you're wasting so much energy and money and all of this stuff. And do you kind of see that? I mean, I guess you travel all over the world. You're talking to a lot of, I always wonder, this is what I wonder. I'm in these classes of these CEUs for pelvic health and women's health, and it's packed. It's packed. Like literally in Charlotte, I was like, I don't know more than 5 of you. Why is that? And they're there, and they're like on level 3 and whatever. I'm like, where the hell are you practicing? Like, why do I not? Because they sit in the hospital and they're just like, well, I'm going to get referrals, and we're always packed. So, but no, you know what it is? It's like, if they want to go off on their own, they've wasted all of that. No personal brand, no anything, no blog or a fate. Like, they don't know how to work it. Do you see women struggling as you're going like around and teaching them what to do?
There's a real issue in our profession that's based on a lack of self-esteem and self-confidence. And I think, you know, there have been changes in that over the past couple of years, you know, improving direct access. I have some mixed feelings about taking the profession to doctoral level, because what I see when I travel throughout the US is a colossal amount of debt, and the concomitant stress that goes along with that, and salaries maybe not keeping up with that unless you change your model of doing business. I think for a long time, you know, I want to try to be careful about how I say this, because I don't think that it's a lack of faith in the profession per se, but maybe it's a lack of faith in our ability to get out in public and talk about this, or our own ability to get out there and deliver and change people's lives. But particularly the areas that we specialize in women's health, you know, particularly pelvic health issues, we're dealing with issues that are very, very intimate for a lot of women, whether we're talking about bladder or bowel or pelvic pain or sexual health or fertility or giving birth. These are areas that are very intimate to women's lives, and on a physical, on a psychic level. And I think we have to realize that we have the power to change people's lives, but we can't do that if they don't know we're here. And that's a big part of, I think, what resonates with your mission statement for this movement, is to how can we get from here to being out in the world in a public way. Because I was just looking at my calendar from last year before we started talking here. I did 23 international events last year. Now that was from Ireland to Italy to Istanbul, Connecticut to California, Cape Town, South Africa, all over. But it's the same wherever I go. There are certain universal truths, you know, because I saw on social media a couple of weeks ago, you asked, so where are all the women's health experts in terms of YouTube, blogging, you know, having social media presence? And while I absolutely agree that, you know, local boots on the ground interaction with your community is vital if you're going to have a business. I think spiritually as a profession, we need to be able to take that next step, because our colleagues in the world of medicine and chiropractic, and I would say in FitPro world, you know, the other professions are out there and sharing what it is that they can bring to the table. We have been a little bit behind in terms of doing that, but I think it's changing, and I think that's a good thing, because if you're going to move to the next level in your business, you can't, in this day and age, you can't get away with saying, oh, I'm a bit of a technophobe, but don't know how, you know, the whole computer thing works. That ship has sailed.
Right. And also the words you use. When you keep saying that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
It was like back in the day, I was just talking this morning on a live stream a little bit about, like, people didn't believe, you know, nobody's going to pay you. If I was like, nobody's going to pay me for this, then nobody will. Because, like, why should they invest in you when you're like, oh, I don't have any money to invest in that? Well, then why should I invest in you? You know, it's more of how can I get the money to invest in this, because it means it's important and things, you know, and one of the things I want to do with this kind of hashtag Medicine Women Rising is the idea that it is all ships rise in that water. So, like, while you're doing that, maybe you're thinking, well, I have my, people kind of like fill my bucket here and it's enough. But here's the thing, we have to start working together. And that's what I love so much about the women's circle idea, is that you start to understand, actually, if Janie or Michelle is doing such great work and she's starting, it makes it easier for me to advertise my stuff in my little town. So, if I start the conversation for some other woman, that's a good thing. It'll end up coming back to me.
Well, absolutely, because, whenever I do anything in public, then I'll get, emails saying, oh, I'm so glad you talked about this. I have this problem. I'm like, well, okay, so let me see if I can find somebody in your area that I can connect you with. Because it's about raising the profile of our collective brand as well as our individual brand. And that isn't something that's taught in PT school.
Right. Not in general. It seems like they get scared, that scarcity mentality, like, well, I don't want to push everybody. Or you start into what you were talking about. It might not even be like, I don't want them to get it and not me. But I think a lot with women, it turns into, oh, she's so much better than me. Look at her blog versus mine. She wrote a book. Oh, she's teaching for Herman and Wallace. Oh, and it's like, it's like, what do you bring? Like, you have something.
Even beyond that, though, I think, Lisa, it's, I couldn't possibly do a video because, I'm too heavy, or my hair doesn't look good, or what will I say? And I don't have anything of worth to say. We don't realize that what we know is already so much, even if we're starting out.
Right.
It's already so much more than what a normal woman knows. And to create that space for conversation, I think, is one of our greatest gifts, because I think, especially as a profession, 150 years ago when I was in university, I had a great anatomy teacher who would always say that a good physio is her voice and her two hands. And that, for me, is really the bedrock of our profession. So our interviewing skills, our interpersonal rapport building, that therapeutic alliance that we hear so much about in the research now when we talk about the biopsychosocial approach, that's something that we've always done as part of our profession. But instead of just having it one-on-one with me and the person in front of me, the patient, what about with the whole world inside that little camera there, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube? And you know what? That's all free.
Right.
All you have to spend is a little bit of bravery to put yourself out there.
Yes, because we're we're kind of making the new mold. We're not breaking a mold because they weren't doing this. We're literally making a new mold, and then that will inspire the sisters behind us on that same path. They have something to look at, because me and you, we needed maybe to have in our nature to sort of be a little brave, or at least have enough life happen where we built those chops. But that's only because we didn't have somebody to really look at, or we had only pieces and we were like trying to mold that into our lives. And that was a lot of work, which is why we're probably like, past our 30s before we're really like embracing this
Oh yeah.
you can do with it. But these people can do that because they have people to look at. One of
But as well, we have to look outside of our profession as well, I think, for inspiration.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's you know, it's just taking off the blinkers and looking out there. And you know, so people like Marie Forleo, you know, great business advice. You know, I was telling you earlier, I have a little poster on my wall, and it's adopted from an interview Marie Forleo did, and it says, "What am I building? Why? Show up, stay positive, do the work." And that's going to take you from overwhelm to action. I'm a big believer in lists and just writing things down, but why am I doing this? You know, Jenny Burrell, whom you know and love as well, you know, is one of my best friends and business partners. So we have a thing now is this on purpose? Whether it's sitting down and doing the blog or the interview or writing the course or having a glass of wine in the evenings, it's bringing that level of mindfulness and intention, and as well as attention, to everything that we're doing. Because that's the sort of thing that elevates your energy levels, and then it clarifies your focus and allows you to move forward, you know.
Right.
But people
because
like
you can't
Danielle
just have it going out. Like that's another thing women do. And you know, you're talking about the physiotherapist, it's like just broad in terms of women in general. I think looking outside of your box, right? Whether it be as a mompreneur or doing a little something around being really at home. You know, you chose motherhood as your main vocation, and you have this little something that gives you, you know, pride and feels good on the side, or you have that big, you know, clinic, or like you and Jenny, and you know, this global kind of thing. The idea, and what I'm hearing you say, is at some point, ladies, you need to seriously find your sister, you know, that one's going to be honest with you, whether, you know, that circle definitely to kind of get a lot of different opinions and stuff. But then, you know, one thing I've seen you and Jenny do, you know, you kind of have this like strategic therapeutic alliance amongst both of you. And I've kind of been amongst you guys for a couple of years now. I connected through Jessica Drummond's work, and so I've seen you guys just elevate and amplify each other through your joint projects, and that's so much of what I want with this collective, to understand you can do it. And it made it easy. Did it make it I mean, not easy, but easier, I would assume, doing it with somebody else, and letting, you know, let Jenny post a couple of things for you, and get all those people that you never would have seen.
For sure. And that's the power of community and the power of communication. And it's also the power of accountability. Because if you have a plan with somebody that you're going to do X, Y, and Z on a certain date, you have to do it. Because you said you're going to do it, so do what you say you're going to do. Follow up with that. So accountability, as well as the support, can be really, really helpful, because sometimes we need a stroke, and sometimes we need a little push, you know. And that's a lot of what we do for each other as well. I mean, I was telling you before we came on, Jenny and I both worked pretty hard last year. Like I was saying, I did 23 international teaching trips and, you know, lots of other things. But what happened was I focused too much last year on work and less attention on my own self-care. So thyroid got a little bit sluggish, metabolism, you know, I put on about 10 extra pounds. This year is the year of self-care. Jenny and I have a little exercise accountability going on at the moment now as well, because we can't tell other people how to live well if we're not doing it, you know. So it's about realizing that why are we doing this? To create, you know, I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said, the ultimate goal of all ambition is to be happy at home. Okay? You know, and that no matter what you do, it's all about being happy at home. And this is our home. This is where we have to live. So we have to take care of this home first, body and soul. And that includes, you know, paying attention to all of our needs: physical, psychic, financial, movement, nutrition. But having that clarity of focus is really important, and then following through with that. Know what you want, know where you want to get, and then break it down into steps. Ask for help if you need it. Danielle Laporte, you know, talks about your core desired feelings. You know, how do you want to feel this time next year? Because, you know, we all started from zero. You know, you and I, when we started out on this journey, we all started from zero. No mailing list, no social media presence, but it's showing up, it's doing it on purpose and then following through. Do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, and I think, accountability is a tough one because it's so much easier, especially when you maybe don't have that conviction yourself, to say I'm too busy. Especially I think if you have that dual flame of the family and then you really kind of love your career or whatever, it gets so easy to sort of be like, oh, well, I couldn't do that because it's a little hard and maybe you need to step out of your box or create a new boundary or move fear in the back seat, right? Like Elizabeth Gilbert kind of describes in her book, and I think it's also, again, we don't hang out with our sisters anymore. We're not seeing it. We're not getting that matriarch wisdom, maybe like, be like, girl, I was you, and you may not listen, but there's somebody that if you start listening to, you can go to, like you mentioned, there's wonderful mentors online and opening yourself up to them. A really interesting thing happened yesterday pertaining to that. I was on a feed. The Women in PT has a feed, and actually I was on another feed with yoga therapy. And it was the same conversation, actually, just in a different thing. But this particular one was a young woman who was like, "Is any women in PT like doing online courses and being?" And I was like. So people mentioned mine very nicely. They mentioned Karen Litzy, and some of you guys that are maybe not in physical therapy that are listening to this don't know this, but these are like main names, Tracy Scher, and and I said, what's interesting about this conversation is that all of the names mentioned are very visible. I mean, I would say I have a big enough mouth that people kind of, I've chimed in, but you're not hearing us. Like, here's this other woman and so here in the circle, and it's kind of like to something you said, it reminded me of what you had said on one of your feed things about the global, the pelvic therapists and how basically OBGYNs are the least that are sending people to these health professionals, and here they are looking at the pelvises all the time. And I had mentioned that this is basically like, in the Bible, Jesus is like, you're a little too close to it. Nobody listens to the pastor within his own town. He's not the key preacher. So when you're talking about doing these partnerships with Jenny and having that accountability to accelerate, I think it's a little bit of that too, as women having the accountability to show up and maybe outside of, how could we do this to kind of show up outside of our norm?
Yes.
And for that ultimate goal to be happy at home, because it's frustrating as hell to have this thing you want to share and you can't.
I think there's a couple of things there that are worth teasing out. I think, first of all, accountability is important. Support is also important as well. And I think that's where community, whether it's live or online, is really, really important. I think also acknowledging that there are different seasons in your life. If you have 2 kids under the age of 3, your time is not necessarily entirely your own. Mm-hmm. However, there's still going to be maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. Maybe instead of sitting down in front of something mindless on the television at night as part of your unwinding process, maybe that would be a good time to sit down with a blank notebook and a pen and start thinking about what it is that you do want. Can you do one thing every day to take a step towards? So being accountable to yourself as well as to your sisters. I think and making that commitment. Carolyn Mace, the medical intuitive, talks about how, again, January, we make all these big commitments, to self-care, to eating well, to moving well. But your soul takes note of each time that you flake out on those promises to yourself as well. And it's like, okay, yeah, here she goes again, typical. So it's about making yourself accountable to yourself, as well as accountable to your community, and then taking one small step every day. Yes, you might be super busy with small children or older parents or work or, things that are going on in your life outside of it, but there's always going to be even 10 minutes a day where you can do one thing to just take that step towards what it is that you want, but you have to figure out what it is that you want first of all.
Yes,
that's the most
we don't know what we don't want. We're running away from point A, but we might have not had that visual, and that's definitely something that by the time they're looking at this video, we've kind of taken them through that why and that what, and getting that vision. But you said something that, you know, that I'm trying to instill in them. You can create that personal brand by, like you said, being accountable to your community. And it may just be committing to say, like I just decided on my Facebook, Monday morning is going to be like a mindful Monday. And I tell them I'm going to be there around 9 o'clock. Today was a little early, but you know, just even that, but then committing to that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever, because when you are ready, when it's a different season of life, you will have that tribe, that loyal support that's been getting something from you. And you need to be grabbing those emails. And you know, I noticed on you, you know, getting more regular with your celebrity, you know, kind of letting everyone kind of see that and that brand and what you're talking about and coming in that newsletter, but you need to schedule that out. So what are a couple of tips that you found just from your experience, now that I've seen you kind of elevate? If you were going to say, you know, 3 or 4 things besides the strategic partnership, which I heard, the self-care, totally important, the personal development, totally important. What are some like technical, behind the scenes sort of business things that have really, surprisingly so, maybe been quiet or not what you thought you needed $1 million for or whatever, that have had a really return on investment, you know, to really build that tribe, build that community?
It's, you know what, the things that have worked best for me from a business perspective have not cost me any money. Okay, so it's the consistent attention to connection and to showing up. So I am not, and I'll be the first person to say, I am not very consistent in terms of my public output, but I run a couple, and I'm involved in a couple of private closed groups, and those are my customer base. And I'm in there every day. So whether it's doing a Facebook Live, whether it's sharing journal articles, doing a poll, hey, I came across this, what do you think of that? And that's, you know, Facebook is free for now, hopefully always so. Facebook is free, Instagram is free. I went to a business conference in New York last year, and those are still the fastest growing social media outlets for women. Twitter is quite a masculine forum, but for women, because, you know, whether it's because we're a bit more visual, you know, we just like that connection, being able to talk and to see the people that we're talking to or about or connecting with. Using social media consistently has driven my business from day one. And I'm not a good tweeter. I don't spend any time on Twitter. Facebook has been my primary business tool since I started. So that's where I would say, find out what works for you and do it consistently.
And don't get crazy if you're not on all of them, but be consistent with what you do gel with.
Exactly. Be a problem solver. Okay. Know what your customer's pain point is. What are their problems? And solve those problems, you know. So I teach a lot of live courses, but I also teach a lot of online courses, because sometimes if people have small children, they cannot travel. And I don't know about you, but whenever I go to a live course, if I come away with, you know, 3 or 4 good clinical pearls, you know, they're going to change the way I practice, I'm really happy. What I love about online learning is you can go back and watch it again and again and again. So I have a couple of different strategic partners. I also do some online mentoring. I only take on a very small amount of mentoring, because I want to be able to nurture that relationship. And then I'm also involved in clinical consulting for a couple of different businesses. So I have a couple of different aspects to my business life, because I like to have a variety of outlets in my life. I remember before I moved back to Ireland from the US, I was working in a PT clinic, and, you know, it was a standard orthopedic sports medicine clinic, you know, push, push, push. How many patients can you see in an hour? Can we double up here? Can we have 2 patients going at the same time? and I came in to set up a women's health program. And one day I looked around and I saw my manager and his manager, and I realized that that was the only path for success in that model.
Yes, me too. Yeah, that's all there is in certain things. And I think if you're a yoga therapist, they're trying to push into some things, but they don't have, there's so much pushback with being a physical therapist, getting involved in things. I just talked to the yoga therapist and I'm just like, guys, you don't even understand what's ahead of you. In fact, if you get in, it's because they're taking advantage of you for money. Yeah. And there was a certain hierarchy and management.
Yeah. And you know, that I looked around and I thought, well, if I stay in this model, that's the path that I will end up on. And I don't want that. So again, I started with identifying what I didn't want, took a step back, what do I want, and then built on it from there. Was it a straight line? Absolutely not. There was a lot of this and this and this going on, but you have to stay the course. And it's like, you know, sometimes when you look at a mosaic, if you're up too close to it, you can't see. Sometimes you have to take a step back and think, okay, so how can I be strategic about this? Where do I want to end up? And then how can I reverse engineer that back to where I am now? What steps do I need to take? And it's about not being afraid to ask for help or advice as well. Right. But I think as well, there can be, if you look at some of the business mentors that are out there, there can be a lot of emphasis on the hustle and the push. And yes, you're doing this, but what's your side hustle? And what's, you know, what else is going on? And I think as well, if you have to continuously push, I don't know, that's, you know, like revving the engine all the time, isn't it? You know, so you've got.
Yeah, I just don't think our physiology works as best for that. I mean, you can do that. But again, when we're talking about being caregivers or whatever, we're already high burnout as it is. Now you add on being a mother or having parents at home, you're also in between. Now you add on maybe, you know, your own self-care issues and valuation of that. And to be perfectly honest, if the world needs you for anything to begin with, you're not setting yourself up for being responsibly there for them.
And you're not there for yourself either.
Right, because you're not there for yourself. Knowing where to put your energy is what I'm hearing from you in this masterclass. It's like understanding, you know, and I think that's the beauty of understanding it sort of as a cycle. And then kind of like, I was talking with Jenny is actually another masterclass beautifully here. And we were just talking about, like, you know, getting the circles, and sometimes you're done and you know it. And I think so many people get stuck that it just had to be that way, or it was so that way and working for so long that they can't understand that it's just done. And here we are as women every 30 days getting reminded, but we go and ignore that, right? We just want to, like, some people, you know, let me just take that pill that I only get my period 4 times a year, you know, whatever, you know, I can't tell you how many people I've been told that they're like, why don't we just ablate your inside of your uterus? You're not using it anyway, or let's just take it off.
Hysterectomy. Yeah. Okay.
You know, and I know you're big with that, with the hysterectomy work, but if we could embrace our tendency to have a curvier flow and whatever, how much less stress realizing this is just the end of some cycle, or I'm kind of here, there's no really beginning or end, I'm just collecting, I'm smelling the roses, but I can strategy. Women are so good at strategy and creating that ecosystem. That is what you're talking about. You created an ecosystem in your business. And that's a big part of this academy, is understanding that's a way to go. You can teach classes. You can give people stuff that they can come back to. Then you have to write 56 newsletters.
But I mean, remember in our profession, let's say if we were to go back 20 years, okay? So back then in the 90s, Medicare was great. If you had Medicare patients, it was brilliant, because Medicare paid really, really well. Not anymore. You know, things change and evolve. You change and evolve. Right. You don't have to, just because, you know, I remember one of these Facebook memes that was doing the rounds for a while, the most dangerous words in the English language, because we've always done it this way. So that might have worked then, but it's a new day now. You're a new woman now, or a new man, and it's okay to change your mind and to do things differently, you know. Because if you can create that personal brand for yourself, and some of the luminaries that you have in this mastermind have done exactly that, and they're starting to establish themselves not only as experts in their own neck of the woods, but online as well. So that global reach is out there too. And I think, again, on an energetic level, it's good for the individual as a business brand, but it's good collectively for the women that we serve, and for the planet generally, because I think creating that sort of energy gives people hope that they don't have to live with whatever problems that they've got going on, that there are answers out there. And if she's doing it, so can I,
Definitely.
and you can't be what you can't see. So as we elevate ourselves, we're clearing the path for those coming along behind us as well, because you and I are kind of we're coming into our crone years at this point, but there are rising stars in our profession, and they're bringing new levels of engagement and expertise. We are probably one of the last generations who remember what life was like before the internet, before Facebook, before Google.
Right.
How did we survive?
People that don't even get that. So it's kind of like helping them also remember and see that history, because then they might realize what opportunity they have. Because one of the things I want to help women with, like, we get so overwhelmed because we're connectors and we are engaged in the community. We kind of, and we gather what has been hunted, and, and doing all this stuff, but we were on a really big roll, right? 80s and 90s, to like be the hunter and the one building the community at home and do this. And honestly, like, do you even want to? Like, is it perfectly okay? And that's what's nice about, one of the things, again, doesn't cost a lot of money, is having those strategic partnerships, because maybe your girlfriend, instead of feeling less than her because she's really great at writing blogs about stuff that you both sell, you could actually support giving out her blog on your thing to give you content, and she could use your thing on her, on whatever. Maybe you're great at Instagram memes or whatever, but if you start seeing each other for the lights that you are, without feeling intimidated and less than, because you're doing that personal work, you're doing that, you're allowing yourself to evolve, gosh, how much energy can you save, which then goes into doing things.
Exactly. And the other thing is, there's enough for everybody. I think sometimes that fear of scarcity, well, if she's having it, that means that there isn't a space for me to do that. Absolutely not. If she's doing it, it means that there's demand for that. So I can do that too. Don't feel like just because somebody is doing it, you can't as well, because you have your own perspective to bring to the table. You have your own life journey as well. And what I'm really starting to see now, which I think is really exciting, is I'm seeing women in their 30s and 40s particularly start to step into that and realize that, it's not just the letters after my name, but it's my life story, my life experiences, and my empathetic abilities and my insights and experience on top of my knowledge and my learning and the letters after my name. All of that together is really what's going to fuel my brand and my perspective. Because, so what's in your toolbox? What do you love to do? And let's come back. We've talked before about this principle of ikigai, the Japanese principle of what you love doing, what you're good at, and what you can make money at. Where does that intersect for you? So how can we move it from just being a hobby into a business? How can we bring what you love into your work life?
And not just I think that's a big difference that maybe, maybe it'll change, because I do see a lot of men getting a little bit more conscious of what we're talking about, but it's because we're doing it and it's working and they're learning from the women. And let's not forget that. But the thing is we feature our story, our past story, and getting over that shame and this and that. Whereas I think men have taught us, and they work a lot on showing that future story. Look at all the houses you can have. Look at this big class you can have. Look at this big, and it kind of comes from that whole, like, look at my big, look at it, like women don't be like, look at my big boobs. They might accentuate them. They know what they got and they're going to use it and they love it, but it's a different conversation, and we need to market that way. We need to use what feels comfortable, because it doesn't feel comfortable. That's the stuff that I see so many women, if I work with them, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be, you know, whatever, because that's what it is. Pushing on people, you know, making them feel less than so that you can be on the top is very different than saying, we're going to rise together. I'm not going to let you know, together the tide will rise all of these boats. It's a much different energy. And thank you so much for, you know, saying a lot of those things that I'm doing in this community, because you're proof. It works. It works.
I can do it. Everybody can.
This woman out there in physical therapy or global whatever, but you saw it in need. You started a global Facebook page that grew tremendously. You know, you're in that conversation because you know that's where your energy is and needed. Because, like you said, I don't do a lot of clinical now. So why the hell am I going to worry about, you know, gathering people to think I'm such a great, going to help them with their pelvic floor for them clinically? I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. You know, such great pearls there. You know, figure out where you want to be. And actually, our first orientation week is I'm a fire starter facilitator. So I'm bringing that in the first week of we're going to fire start and get that stuff you're talking about, because so much is this personal development. Yeah. That's why ladies sit around and talk around coffee clutches, right? It's that personal development.
Absolutely. But for women, I think as well, you can't wait until someone's going to give you permission.
Yes.
So you have to be brave and press the record button on your Facebook Live, you know, on your PC, and just start. Because you know what? It's like, I think in it's Julia Cameron's work, you know, she talks about the artist's way and doing your morning pages every day, or writing the first draft of your book. Write the first shitty draft. Okay, acknowledge that it will be really bad. Right. Okay, acknowledge that it's going to be really bad, but get it down on paper, because once it's out there, then you can improve it. When you're just spinning your wheels up here, thinking, well, maybe if I go into town and I buy that new top and I'll go get my hair cut and I'll buy the new lip gloss and then I'll arrange, you know, my room and it'll all be perfect. When it's perfect, I'll do it. If you wait until it's perfect, it's never going to happen.
And you'll be exhausted and you won't be at your brightest. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and a thing I had spoken with Jenny about, and I tell my mentor, everybody's not going to like you. Let's just get over it. Yeah. You're going to disappoint a lot of people who want you to be a certain way. Yeah. That's the whole point. You're not.
And it's a good thing, because that means that the people who like you will really get you.
Right.
You know, you can't please everybody. You know, it's important.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you know, not everybody wants to be a goddess. I get it. But you know what? There's a circle of women that are going to be rising and be, honestly, I think the most influential women helping other women in the world, or helping other families by helping the people in it that do get it, but they're going to need to be goddesses to have the sustainability, to not hurt themselves and whatever, because it's big work, big shoes we're filling here.
It is. And, you know, be brave. Just be brave. Try it. What is the worst thing that happens?
Right. Failure. But you know what? Again, if you're thinking of it not like this line where you fell off the damn cliff, it's more of this circle or this tangent. And again, as a woman, you know how to pull together, you know, a gourmet meal out of nothing in the refrigerator. You know this stuff. You know how to be like, oh my God, all right, I've got these kids and this is all we got and they've got to be together. You know this is in your cells. We are the ones that decided to stop being the nomads and say, hey, honey, what if we actually just hang out here and make a community and support each other instead of keep having to pick up and go to a different thing? What if we just waited for different seasons and started hunting different things during different parts of the year? That was the women.
But I think, though, you know, Samuel Beckett he was an Irish poet and playwright, and, you know, he boiled it down into a couple of fairly succinct sentences, you know. Ever tried? Ever failed? Try again. fail again, fail better. Because each time you try, you learn something new, and you build and you build and you learn and you grow.
Go. Take another ride on that. It's not a roller coaster. Don't do the roller coaster, but
No.
let it be this. Take a ride on the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Allow yourself.
Be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself. Allow yourself the space to make mistakes. Try something. See how it goes. If it doesn't work, at least now you know.
Right. Because
You know,
the curvy hustle, exactly. It doesn't, you don't have to be fearless. You have to fear less and do that. So I'm going to end this to you, and I want to respect your time. Thank you so much, Michelle. Where can people find you directly if they have a couple of questions on this, or if they're like, wow, she's a great mentor, or something like that? Where's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. My public page is Michelle Lyons, Celebrate Muliebrity. And my website is celebratemuliebrity.com. Muliebrity is an old English word that means the art and state of being a woman, and I think we should celebrate that.
Thank you.
So
Perfect.
Track down.
Perfect way to end this. And I love that quote you gave us from Benjamin Franklin. The ultimate goal of all ambition is to be happy at home. Because I think there's so many women that, number one, they understand they kind of want to do that in their home of their life, but like you said, it's here. This is home. And for the yogi, that's it. You know, the eternal flame and everything, it's here. So you've displayed that beautifully. Thank you so much for this masterclass. So blessed to know you and have you in that circle when I finally decided to leave my beautiful little utopia and find those other medicine women. I feel very blessed to have you and I call you a friend. I wish we could hang out more.
We'll have to do that.
We do. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you. My honor.